Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you very much for joining in for our Srimad Bhagavatam study session. Let's begin with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namo Pankajanaභaya Namo Pankajamaline Namo Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpathe Nanyam Tvadavayam Pashe Yatra Mrityu Parasparam Krishna Krishna Mahabaho Bhaktanam Abhayankara Tvameko Dhayamananam Apavargosi Samshrute Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadhaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nidhi Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamam Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mishwaram Harihi Om Tatsat. Hare Krishna. So thank you devotees for joining in for the Srimad Bhagavatam study session. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 9, entitled The Passing Away of Bhishma Pitamaha in the Presence of Lord Shri Krishna. So we were saying yesterday how Bhishma Pitamaha had only one desire, right? Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahetuki Tvai, right? So that is the desire of a pure devotee, which Bhishma Pitamaha also had, that he always wanted to remember the Lord, especially at the time of death. He wanted to leave his body by taking darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we were discussing how all of us will get this opportunity. All of us have this opportunity every day to have the association of Krishna. And if you sincerely take the association of Krishna, remember Krishna 24 hours of the day, then at the time of death, we will be able to remember Krishna. And in this way, we will go back home, back to Godhead. We will reawaken our Krishna Prema. So in that way, we see from the teachings of Bhishma Pitamaha, although he is in severe misery, right? He is in severe pain actually. Right? They say pain is inevitable. In this material world, we have a material body. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, right? We don't suffer to the extent we know that this is a temporary. This is only pertaining to the material body, right? When we transcend our consciousness, like Bhishma Pitamaha was lying on the bed of arrows and it is so painful, right? And he is also being asked to give instructions to Yudhishtir Maharaj. All of that he was able to do. Why? Because he was surrendered to the Lord, right? If the Lord has put me into a particular situation, the Lord will empower me to cross over that situation in a way that pleases him. And by the empowerment of the Lord, we'll be able to tackle all the situations. And always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So, Avashya Rakshibe Krishna. You should have full faith that the Lord will protect me at all times, right? And the protection will be according to the Lord's desire. And the Lord is my best friend. And the Lord is my best well-wisher. So, the Lord always protects me. And I have to trust the Lord and continue to perform his Swadharma, depending on the Lord and praying to the Lord to give me the intelligence to perform my Swadharma in a way that pleases Guru and Gauranga. Okay, let's move on to the next verse. Suta Vacha, text number 25. Yudhishthirastada karnya shayanam sharapanjare aprichat vividhan dharman rishinam chanushranvatam. Anusha Mataji, go ahead. Synonyms.
Suta Uvacha. Sri Suta Goswami said, Yudhishthiraha, King Yudhishthira, tat that Akarnya hearing, Shayanam lying down, Sharab Panjare on the bed of arrows, Aprachat asked, Vividan multifarious, Dharman duties, Rishinam of the Rishis, Cha and Anushranvatam hearing after. Translation purport by Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Suta Goswami said, Maharaj Yudhishthir, after hearing Bhishmadev speak in that appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all the great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties. Purport. Bhishmadeva, speaking in that appealing tone, convinced Maharaj Yudhishthir that he was very soon passing away. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was inspired by Lord Shri Krishna to ask him of the principles of religion. Lord Shri Krishna inspired Maharaj Yudhishthir to ask Bhishma Deva in the presence of many great sages, indicating thereby that the Lord's devotee, like Bhishma Deva, although apparently living as a worldly man, is far superior to many great sages, even Vyasadeva. Another point is that Bhishma Deva at that time was not only lying on a deathbed of arrows, but was greatly aggrieved because of that state. One should not have asked him any question at that time, but Lord Shri Krishna wanted to prove that his pure devotees are always sound in body and mind by dint of spiritual enlightenment, and thus, in any circumstances, a devotee of the Lord is in perfect order to speak of the right way of life. Yudhishthira also preferred to solve his problematic questions by asking Bhishmadeva rather than ask anyone else present there who was seemingly more learned than Bhishmadeva. This is all due to arrangement of the great wheel carrier, Lord Shri Krishna, who establishes the glory of his devotees. The Father likes to see the Son become more famous than himself. The Lord declares very empathetically that worship of his devotee is more valuable than the worship of Lord himself. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, apparently, he was not convinced when Lord Shri Krishna was explaining to him that this was the Dharma Yudh. The battle of Kurukshetra was not fought to make you the king, right? That was not the purpose of the battle. The battle was fought to uphold Dharma. And Duryodhana and his team were against Dharma, right? But Yudhishthir Maharaj was not convinced, and that is also the plan of the Lord, right? How the Lord plans, right? How the Lord sometimes puts the devotees in illusion, right? Like how Arjuna was put into illusion, and the entire Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Lord Shri Krishna. And similarly, Lord Shri Krishna wanted to glorify Bhishma Pitamaha, right? Although he's a worldly person, right? He was a king. He was not a king, but he was literally running the entire kingdom of Hastinapur, right? Or Dhritarashtra was blind, and and he was also spiritually blind, and he was also materially blind. He was incapable of running the kingdom, right? Because of his immaturity, because of the way he'd grown up as children. So Bhishma Pitama was a staunch support, because of whom the kingdom was running in an appropriate way, right? So in this way, Bhishma Pitama was doing all of his swadharma. He seemed to be a very worldly person, right? Because he cited Duryodhana, because he told that I'm maintained by the Kauravas, and hence I have to join their team, etc. But Lord Krishna wanted to say or wanted to make this point very, very clear, that a devotee apparently externally may do anything, right? It may seem that a devotee is very worldly, or a devotee is extremely either greedy, or is working very hard, or is very passionate, etc. But the inner heart of the devotee only Krishna knows, right? We cannot judge any person by their external appearance or the way they behave, etc. Right? Of course, for in our own behavior, we have to ensure that we follow the qualities of Vaishnava Sadachar, of Trinada Bhishuni Chena Taroriva Saishnu Navanina Manavina Kirtaniya Sadahari. But we should not judge any other devotee or any other person for that reason, because we don't know what they are going through, why they are doing what they are doing. So in this way, although Bhishma Pitamaha looks from an external perspective to be a worldly minded person, right? Krishna wanted to prove that if a person is a devotee, then such a person, even if he is extremely troubled, even if he seems to be a worldly person, right? Such a person will be empowered by the Lord to actually deliver instructions. To deliver instructions on governance, said, lying down on a board on a bed of arrows is not easy, right? And how Bhishma Pitamaha is able to do it? That's why Krishna says, because my devotees take so much of trouble to follow my instructions, right? I do anything for my devotee, right? And Lord Shiva is the greatest of the devotees. Shiva himself drank the poison, right? When it came out of the churning of the ocean, right? Samudra Manthan Leela, right? Shiva drank up the entire poison as a service to Lord Shri Krishna. So in this way, the devotees do anything for the Lord. They are even willing to sacrifice everything for the pleasure of the Lord. And hence Lord Shiva says, Aradhanam api sarvesham Vishnur Aradhanam param. Right? The best of the worship is the worship of Lord Vishnu. Tasmat paratram Devi. Right? He is telling Parvati Devi. Tasmat means even better than that. Tasmat parataram. Parataram means even better than that. Is Tasmat parataram Devi Vaishnavanam. What is that? Aradhanam api sarvesham Vishnur Aradhanam param. Tasmat parataram Devi Tadiyanam samarchanam. Tadiyana means better than the worship of Lord Vishnu, which is the best form of worship, is the worship of Vaishnavas, who are the devotees of, who are the servants of Lord Vishnu. So in this way, the devotees, like we yesterday were mentioning, right, this transcendental competition between the Lord and the devotee. Both of them want to glorify each other. Both of them want to serve each other and satisfy each other and please each other, right? But the Lord always wins, right? And here the Lord is giving out the glories of Bhishma Pitamaha, who is lying down on the bed of arrows, who is seeming to be in extreme pain, but yet he is able to give these gems of governance to Yudhishtir Maharaj. And apparently he is the one who seems to be convincing Yudhishtir Maharaj of something that the Lord himself could not convince, right? So in that way, the Lord does not mind being completely dishonored, but he wants to glorify his devotee like that. Okay, text number 26. Purusha swabhava vihitan yatha varnam yatha shramam vairagya rago vapadibhyam amnato bhaya lakshanan. Yeah, Karpakali Mataji, go ahead.
Hey Krishna, Dandatna Mataji, synonyms, Purusha, the human being, Swabhava, by his own acquired quality, Vihitan, prescribed, Yata, according to Varnam, classification of caste, Yata, according to Ashramam, orders of life, Vairagya, detachment, Raga, attachment, Upadishmiyam, out of which such designations, Amnata, systematically, Ubayaha, both, Lakshana, and symptoms. Translation by Prabhupada ki jai. Translation at Maharaja Yudhishthira's inquiry, Bhima first defined all the classification of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described the counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Purport, the conception of four castes and four orders of life as planned by Lord himself, Bhagavad Gita 4.13, is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual person so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act according to get free from material bondage or conditional life. In almost all the Puranas, the subject matter is described the same spirit, and also in Mahabharata, it is more elaborately described by Bhishma Deva in the Santi Parva, beginning from the 60th chapter. The Varnashrama Dharma is described for the civilized human being just to train him to successfully terminate human life. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of the lower animals engaged in eating, sleeping, hearing, and mating. Bhishma Deva advised for all human beings are 9 qualifications: not to become angry, not to lie, to equally distribute wealth, to forgive, to beget children only by one's legitimate wife, to be pure in mind and hygienic in order, not to be inimical towards anyone, to be simple and to support servants or subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary qualities. Besides these, the Brahmanas, the intelligent men, the administrative men, the mercantile community, and the labor class must acquire special qualities in terms of occupational duties mentioned in all Vedic scriptures. For the intelligent men, Controlling the senses is most essential qualification. It is the basis of morality. Sex indulgence, even with the legitimate wife, must also be controlled, and by thereby family control will automatically follow. An intelligent man abuses his great qualifications if he does not follow the Vedic way of life. This means that he must seriously make a study of the Vedic literatures, especially of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. For learning Vedic knowledge, one must approach a person who is 100% engaged in devotional service. He must not do things which are forbidden in the Shastras. A person cannot be a teacher if he mocks or smokes. In the modern system of education, a teacher's academic qualification is taken into consideration without value evaluation of his moral life. Therefore, the result of education is misuse of high intelligence in so many ways. The Kshatriya, the member of the administrative class, is especially advised to give charity and not to accept charity in any circumstances. Modern administrators raise subscriptions for some political functions, but never give charity to its citizen in any state function. It is just a reverse in the injunctions of Shastras. The administrative class must be well versed in Shastras, but must not take into the profession of teachers. The administrators should never pretend to become a non-violent and thereby go to hell. When Arjuna wanted to become a non-violent coward on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was severely chastised by Lord Krishna. The Lord degraded Arjuna at that time to the status of an uncivilized man for his avowed acceptance of the cult of non-violence. The administrative class must be personally trained in military education. Cowards should not be elevated to the presidential throne by the dint of numerical votes only. Monarchs are all chivalrous personalities, and therefore monarchy should be maintained provided the monarch is regularly trained in the occupational duties of the king. In fighting, the king or president should be never return home without being hurt by the enemy. The so-called king of today never visit the field. He is very much expert in artificially encouraging the fighting strength of the hope of the false national prestige. As soon as the administrative class is turned into a gang of mercantile and laborer men, the whole machinery of government becomes polluted. The Vaisyas, the members of the mercantile communities, are especially advised to protect the cows. Crop protection means increasing the milk productions in the curd and butter. Agriculture and distribution of foodstuffs are the primary duties of the mercantile community, backed by education in Vedic knowledge and trained to give in charity. As the Kshatriyas were given the charge of the protection of the citizens, Vaishyas were given the charge of protection of animals. Animals are never meant to be killed. Killing of animals is a symptom of barbarian society. For a human being, agriculture produce fruits, milk, and sufficient compatible food sources. The human society should have given more attention to animal protection. The protective energy of the laborer is misused when when he is occupied by industrial enterprises. Industry of various types cannot produce the essential needs of man, namely rice, wheat, grains, milk, fruits, and vegetables. The production of machines and machine tools increases the artificial living fashion of a class of vested interests and keeps thousands of men in starvation and unrest. This should not be the standard of civilization. The Sudra class is less intelligent and should have no independence. They are meant for rendering sincere service to the three higher sections of the society. The Sudra can mean attain all comforts of life simply by rendering service to the higher class. It is in, especially enjoyed that a Sudra should never bank money. As soon as the Sudras accumulate wealth, it will be misused for sinful activities in wine, women, and gambling. Wine, women, gambling indicate that the population is degraded to less than Sudra quality. The higher caste should always look after the maintenance of the Sudras. They should provide them with old and used garments. The Sudra should not leave his master and the master is old and invalid, and the master should keep the servant satisfied in all respects. The sutras must first of all be satisfied by some sumptuous food and clothing before any sacrifice is performed. In this age, so many functions are held by spending millions, but the poor laborer is not sumptuously fed for given charity and clothing, etc. The laborers are thus dissatisfied, and so they make agitation. The varnas are, so to speak, classification of different occupations, and ashrama dharma has gradually progressed to the path of self-realization. Both are interrelated, and one is dependent on the other. The main purpose of ashrama dharma is to awaken knowledge and detachment. The brahmachari ashrama is the training for ground for the prospective candidates. In this asrama, it is instructed that this material world is not actually the home of living beings. The conditioned souls under material bondage are prisoners of matter, and therefore self-realization is the ultimate aim of life. The whole system of ashrama dharma is a means to detachment. One who fails to assimilate this spirit of a detachment is allowed to enter into family life with the same spirit of detachment. Therefore, one who attains detachment may at once adopt the fourth order, namely renounced, and thus live in charity only, not to accumulate wealth, but thus to keep body and soul together for ultimate realization. Also, life is for one who is attached, and vanaprastha and sannyasi orders of life are for those who are detached from material life. Brahmacharya ashrama is therefore especially meant for training both the attached and detached. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Dhanad Pranam. So, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. Right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam. Right? The Varna Ashrama. Right? Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam. They've been created by me. Gunakarma Vibhagashaha. And it is determined not on the basis of birth, but on the basis of one's qualities and one's activities. Yeah. So, a very detailed way Prabhupada has explained the roles and responsibilities of the four varnas and the ashramas. The four varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Right? Brahmana means Brahman Jana iti Brahmana. Right? One who understands who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one who teaches others about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is a Brahmana. Right? They are the leaders of the society and they guide the Kshatriyas. Right? That's why in the ancient times, Parikshit Maharaj and all those kings, King Prithu, right? All of them were called Raja Rishis, right? Vishwamitra. They were all called Raja Rishis. Why? Because they were rulers. Because by their nature, because generally the Kshatriyas are passionate people because they want to protect. Right? You need to have certain amount of power. You need to have certain amount of military art. You need to have certain amount of aggression to want to protect your citizens. Right? So the Kshatriyas are those who have this passionate attitude, the leaders of the society who want to create a welfare for all the people, for all the citizens, right? So in this way, they are passionate people, and those who have this kind of quality and those who perform such activities in terms of protection, right? Trayate iti Kshatriya, right? One who protects is a Kshatriya, and one who is realized Brahman is a Brahmana, and under the guidance of a Brahmana, the Kshatriya will rule, right? And then Vaishyas are like Kshatriyas are typically protecting people. The Prabhupada mentions here that Vaishyas typically take care of animals, the protection of cows, protection of animals, agriculture, right? Typically, the earning of money, right? That we do in today's terms, you can say business, right? Those who run the business and get profit, right? Those who are merchants, right? Those people are typically Vaishyas, and these people have to maintain the remaining others, right? Because typically they have cows, they have land, they till the land, they and they harvest the crop and they sell the crop, they sell the milk, everything. So they can earn money through and as soon as Radhanath Maharaj always says, earn with integrity and spend with compassion. So in this way, when the Vaishya class, right, they do the business, and in this way they they give charity to the other, so the other varnas, then the entire varnashrama system functions very wonderfully. And then the shudras are typically those who don't know anything, right? That Kalau Shudra Sambhava. That means I want a lot of money, but I don't know how to acquire money. I don't have any skills and abilities, but I need training for everything, right? So those are typically the Shudras. They work for the Kshatriyas, they work for the Brahmanas, they work for the Vaishyas, and in this way they get trained in the activity that they do and they earn money, right? They're typically all of our computer professionals, chartered accountants, doctors, and all of them come under this profession, come under this category of Varna, of Shudra, right? Shudras should be open to hearing good instructions from the Brahmanas, and also are under the protection of the Kshatriyas, and they also, Shudras also need to give in charity, right? We are all typically Shudras. Some of us may be Vaishyas, right? So we should give in charity to the Brahmana and the Kshatriya class, right? That's why the Kshatriya is typically refers to the government. The government collects taxes, because the governments typically, as it is understood in the original parlance of the term, that they are supposed to give protection, and in order to give that kind of protection, they also collect taxes, right? But now there is too much exploitation, right? The practical scenario may not be what is prescribed in the Vedic scriptures, and that is the reason there is so much turmoil, there is so much confusion, there is so much famine, flood, etc., right? Because there's too much of exploitation that is happening right now, isn't it? So that is the distinction, and each one of us, I have to typically identify our own guna and karma, and identify where we fall under, and accordingly work according to our guna and karma, and contribute according to our capacity, whether as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or as a Shudra, typically according to our Varna. And Ashrama is typically Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, right? Most of us are Grahasthas, right? When Grahasthas means we run the married life, but keeping Lord Shri Krishna in the center of our life, right? Typically, that's one thing, common thing that runs across all of the ashramas and all the varnas also, right? A merchant also, he does his business, but keeping Lord Shri Krishna in the center, right? A Brahmana also, he studies the Vedic scriptures, he teaches the Vedic scriptures. And what do the Vedic scriptures teach us? About the glorification of the Lord, the teachings of the Lord, right? As Grahasthas, we are allowed a certain amount of sense pleasure, which has to be regulated, right? Which means Krishna himself says, I am that sex life where Krishna conscious children are produced. So there's Garbhodana Samskara, there's certain rules and regulations by which even certain kind of enjoyment and pleasures are allowed for Grahasthas, right? Brahmachari is a person who typically teaches attachment to Krishna, because Brahmachari as a class, they deal with Swadhyaya, study of the scriptures, right? And then Grahastha, Vanaprastha is when a Grahastha or a Brahmachari at the age of when he crosses, it's typically it said Brahmachari until the age of 25, which means celibacy has to be followed until the age of 25. 25 to 50, one engages in Grahastha ashram, being trained as a Brahmachari for the first 25 years. And then at the age of 50, one actually renounces one's family responsibilities, daily responsibilities, right? So, nowadays, because the children are born at a later age, we still have to take care of the children. They're still going to school and college, and we're just 45. So we're still daily involved in our daily work, right? We need to prepare a tiffin for the children. So we need to manage that according to time, place, and circumstance. But when the children are married and when they are started taking care of their own life, right, then we should not constantly intervene in their work, right? So we should give them their freedom to work, to perform their swadharma, right? We should give them the right routes, so that they follow the principles of Krishna consciousness when they take their decisions, when they lead their lives, right? So typically, even beyond teenage, it is said that the parents should only become a friend and guide only when asked, right? And what we need to do when so our energy, which was completely involved in taking care of the child, feeding the child, running behind the child, etc., that energy has to be dowtailed at the age of 50 plus at least, in completely surrendering to the Lord, in taking up certain services exclusively for the pleasure of the Lord, like that. That is Vanaprastha. And sannyasi means a parivrajakacharyas. It means they've given up all the attachments, right? When a person takes sannyas, it means it's said to be a new birth. So Purva Ashram, they say, right? The family members and the previous attachments, right? Because if they're not attached to anybody else other than Lord Shri Krishna. So that is the Varna Ashrama system. And Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Shreya Swadharman Vigunaha Paradharmat Swanustitat Swadharmo Nidanam Shreya Paradharmo Bhayavaha. So Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, it is very, very dangerous to perform somebody else's duty. And Prabhupada gives example here, how Arjuna giving up the battle and going to a profession of begging, is not right, right? Even if he fights the battle and he loses, he will still go to the heavenly planets. So when we understand our guna and karma, and then accordingly we choose our varna and ashrama, then we need to perform our swadharma with proper knowledge under proper guidance, so that we also attain the same destination that a brahmachari or a brahmana also attains, right? Because we are dedicating our lives in the service of the Lord. And whatever we are doing, ultimately we want to always remember the Lord and never forget the Lord. So this spiritual evolution is the reason why Krishna himself is created. Chatur Varnam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. So according to the qualities that you've acquired, according to the modes that you are situated in, you should keep Lord Sri Krishna in the center. And in this way we perform all of our duties. Right? Paradharmo Bhayavaha. Not follow somebody else blindly. Right? Because that is Bhayavaha. Then it could result to very dangerous results, right? Shreyan Swadharmo. Shreya means what is good for us. Yes, Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha. Performing our own Swadharma according to our own qualities, right? So Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharma Swanustidhat. So according to our qualities, we should perform our own duty. What is that? Shreya Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharma Swanustidhat. Paradharmo Nidhanam Swadharmo Nidhanam Shreya. It is far better to die performing one's own duty even imperfectly, rather than paradharmo bhayavaha, rather than performing somebody else's duty. So that is the essential aspect of this varnashrama system, and Prabhupada has given a very detailed purport for this. So we can introspect and reflect upon this to see what is our guna and karma. Are we in the right ashram? Are we in the right varna? And being situated in this varna and ashrama, how can I dovetail all of my propensities, all of my qualities, all of my work in the service of Guru and Gauranga, like that. Okay, so we'll take the last verse for today. That was a long purport. I think we'll have about how many? 7 minutes more. Okay, let's read text number 27. Dhana dharman, raja dharman, moksha dharman, vibhagashaha, stri dharman, bhagavad dharman, samasa vyasa yogataha. Yes, Deval Mataji, go ahead. Synonyms.
Yeah, synonyms. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dana Pranam. Synonyms. Dana dharman, the acts of charity. Raja dharman, pragmatic activities of the kings. Moksha dharman, the acts of salvation. Vibhagashaha, by divisions. Stri dharman, duties of women. Bhagavad dharman, the acts of the devotees. Samasa, generally. Vyasa, explicitly. Yogataha, by means of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. Purport. To give charity is one of the householder's main functions, and he should be prepared to give in charity at least 50% of his hard-earned money. A brahmachari or student should perform sacrifices. A householder should give charity, and a person in the retired life or in the renounced order should practice penances and austerities. Those are the general functions of all the ashramas or orders of life on the path of self-realization. In the brahmachari life, the training is sufficiently imparted so that one may understand that the world as property belongs to the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. No one, therefore, can claim to be the proprietor of anything in the world. Therefore, in the life of a householder, which is a sort of license for sex enjoyment, one must give in charity for the service of the Lord. Everyone's energy is generated or borrowed from the reservoir of energy of the Lord. Therefore, the resultant actions of such energy must be given to the Lord in the shape of transcendental loving service for Him. As the rivers draw water from the sea through the clouds and again go down to the sea, similarly, our energy is borrowed from the Supreme Source, the Lord's energy, and it must return to the Lord. That is the perfection of our energy. The Lord, therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 says, that whatever we do, whatever we undergo as penance, whatever we sacrifice, whatever we eat, or whatever we give in charity must be offered to Him, the Lord. This is the way of utilizing our borrowed energy. When our energy is utilized in that way, our energy is purified from the contamination of the material inebrities, and thus we become fit for our original natural life of service to the Lord. Rajadharma is a great science, unlike modern diplomacy for political supremacy. The kings were trained systematically to become munificent and not merely to be tax collectors. They were trained to perform different sacrifices only for the prosperity of the subjects. To lead the prajas to the attainment of salvation was a great duty of the king. The father, the spiritual master, the king are not to become irresponsible in the matter of leading their subjects to the path of ultimate liberation from birth, death, disease, and old age. When these primary duties are properly discharged, there is no need of government of the people by the people. In modern days, the people in general occupy the administration by the strength of manipulated votes, but they are never trained in the primary duties of the king, and that is also not possible for everyone. Under the circumstances, the untrained administrators play havoc to make the subjects happy in all respects. On the other hand, these untrained administrators gradually become rogues and thieves and increase the taxation to finance a top-heavy administration that is useless for all purposes. Actually, the qualified brahmanas are meant to give direction to the kings for proper administration in terms of the scriptures like the Manu Samhita and the Dharma Shastras of Parashara. A typical king is the ideal of the people in general, and if the king is pious, religious, chivalrous, and munificent, the citizens generally follow him. Such a king is not a lazy, sensuous person living at the cost of the subjects, but alert always to kill thieves and dacoits. The pious kings were not merciful to dacoits and thieves in the name of nonsensical ahimsa, non-violence. The thieves and dacoits were punished in an exemplary way so that in the future no one would dare commit such nuisances in an organized form. Such thieves and dacoits were never meant for administration as they are now. The taxation law was simple. There was no force, no encroachment. The king had a right to take one-fourth of the production made by the subject. The king had a right to claim a fourth of one's allotted wealth. One would never grudge parting it with it because due to the pious king and religious harmony, there was enough natural wealth, namely grains, fruits, flowers, silk, cotton, milk, jewels, minerals, etc. And therefore no one was materially unhappy. The citizens were rich in agriculture and animal husbandry, and therefore they had enough grains, fruits, and milk without any artificial needs of soaps and toilet cinemas and bars. The king had to see that the reserved energy of humanity was properly utilized. Human energy is meant not exactly for fulfilling animal propensities, but for self realization. The whole government was specifically designed to fulfill this particular purpose. As such, the king had to select properly the cabinet ministers, but not on the strength of voting background. The ministers, the military commanders, and even the ordinary soldiers were all selected by personal qualification, and the king had to supervise them properly before they were appointed to their respective posts. The king was especially vigilant to see that the tapasvis or persons who sacrificed everything for disseminating spiritual knowledge were never disregarded. The king knew well that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never tolerates any insult to his unalloyed devotees. Such tapasvis were trusted leaders even of the rogues and thieves, who would never disobey the orders of tapasvis. The king would give special protection to illiterates, the helpless, and widows of the state. Defense measures were arranged previous to any attack by the enemies. The taxing process was easy, and it was not meant for squandering, but was for strengthening the reserve fund. The soldiers were recruited from all parts of the world, and they were trained for special duties. As far as
Hare Krishna.
salvation is concerned, Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you. Yes, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam. Yeah. So I think we have about 2 minutes left, or about 1.5 minutes left. So we'll continue this, right? So this gives a very, very wonderful, this section is very, very important for all of us. Why? Because it tells us how we have to live our life, right? This is Bhishma Pitamaha's instructions of how we should live our life. And whoever we identify ourselves as based on our guna and karma, we should especially focus on these instructions and do a introspection, do a contemplation, and see if we are performing our duty in a way that's pleasing to Guru and Gauranga. And Lord Krishna was very pleased with Bhishma Pitamaha's these instructions. So we follow these instructions, we'll please Bhishma Pitamaha and we'll please Lord Sri Krishna. Namma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Asatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Priya Dvaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama